Hi, and welcome to this episode of The Historical Fencer. I'm glad you tuned in because I've got a special guest today. He's an Italian living in Canada and teaching 15th century fighting arts from Italy and Germany to a bunch of Native Americans from the Mohawk tribe. His name is Orlando de Ciccio, and I think you'll enjoy this conversation. I certainly did.
You shall find me a grave man.
You ready, gentlemen?
Orlando, welcome to the Historical Fencer podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you on. I have a lot of questions for you, but maybe we should start with your background in historical fencing. How did you, that's a big one. Just dive right into it.
Because
so how did you get into? When did you get into historical fencing?
very gradually. So basically, before even approaching fencing, I approached the historical aspect of it. So where I come from, it's a small village in Italy. It's like 6,000 people. They have a historical reenactment. And at school, I was approached. I was like 11 years old, maybe even younger, by some classmates. You know, do you want to join the drummer band? You know, because they've got like the flag things, the trumpets, and the drums. So I started with the drums. So, you know, you dress up, Renaissance, like 1600, and we started like that. So you travel all the country and kind of like that. Then my father got into historical archery. And when I was 13, I started doing that. And then from there, you move to specifically, what was it? I believe in English it's called stage fighting.
Yeah.
So, you know, you look into the manuals, you create these choreographies that have to be necessarily more exaggerated than necessary, because if you would do like something realistic, it would end in 1 minute and it's not profitable for the company. And then, you know, one thing leads to another. You start enjoying that feeling of recreating that sort of sensation of fencing, and you start wondering, what would it be if we do it for real? And then you end up doing it for real, and that's how I got into Weaponized.
Let's just stop you there a bit on the stage fighting. Isn't that sort of interesting though? Because in the Western tradition, or you know, like if you go back to Errol Flynn and you watch those movies, it's always fights that go on to tell a story for a very long time. And then when you saw the first Kurosawa movie, it was like, you know, and the guy is dead. It's everything before the fight. It's not so much the fencing. It's more the drama sort of happens outside of the fight. Like so that's pretty interesting. You know, two completely different approaches to how to do stage fighting.
Yeah. Well, where I started from, they tried to find an hybrid for it. So there was the build-up, because the whole reenactment was basically 2 knights fighting for the hand of the lady. So it was kind of a duel. So there was the whole build-up from the beginning of the event was 3 days prior to the final act, which was, you know, the final fight. But also, since it's a show, you have to prolong it exaggerately. So that they use both tactics. Nowadays, I think it's kind of lame, but that's what the public likes. You know, they've watched it with the eyes of pop culture, and they like it.
Yeah. I think Kurosawa was probably influenced by like those spaghetti westerns, you know, with Clint Eastwood. It's a lot of, you know, staring down, you know, and then, you know, it's a quick shot and one falls down and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you started sort of exploring the historical fencing then, and do it for real. What was your who did you do that with? Was it your dad?
Well, I started with my dad with the stage acting things. So, you know, we would just get these manuals, look at the guards mainly, and we would try to recreate them aesthetically without really understanding the purpose. Then I moved to Canada. And when I was there, you know, I wanted to do actually armored fencing. That, from my ignorant point of view, was HMB. You know, those guys that hit each other with swords, which is not artifaction. So the funny thing is that I showed up for that class but that class was not taking place, and they had Hema instead. They were practicing mayor.
Oh.
So I went there with one intention, and then by the end of the class, I was like, no, I'm doing this.
Yeah. So
that's how it started.
All right. So why did you move to Canada?
Long story short, work.
Oh yeah, work.
I wanted to work.
I could tell you a funny story about that. When a friend of mine and me were going home a late night on the tram, and there was an Italian there on the tram, and
I'm scared.
yeah, and my it ended up it was a fist fight actually. But it was a pretty funny thing because my friend was really drunk and this Italian guy was really drunk, and my friend, what he thought he was saying was, why did you move to Sweden if Italy is so much better? But what he really said was, and since I was pretty sober, I heard him, and I couldn't, stop laughing. He said, why did you move here? Are you trying to escape taxes? Something like that. So the Italian going like, what the hell did you just say? You calling me like mafia? And soon enough it was like, I was coaching him. It's like, go high, go low, change direction.
True story.
Yeah, it's a true story. It's pretty fun.
But for sure, it does not apply to me because the taxes here are insane.
Oh yeah,
like we're talking about
my
almost 50%.
My point is, no one ever moves to Sweden for the weather, and I'm guessing it's the same with Canada. Sweden is usually like they move here for the women or for work. That's basically it.
You have very beautiful women, and this is not to be like misogynist or whatever or objectifying. You've got objectively beautiful women. You are lucky men.
Well, yeah,
objectively.
I agree. So you got into historical fencing. Okay, maybe I should just back up a bit because we have never really met, you and me. We've just spoken online.
Unfortunately. Yes.
And one of the things why I wanted to have you on the podcast as well was because you're in Canada. You're doing something that no one else is really doing, and this fascinates me because you're training with a Native American tribe, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. And I wanted to sort of explore because the warrior culture thing is something which I've spoken a lot about and it interests me. So I wanted to get into that. So all of this other stuff is just foreplay into that, really, getting onto that topic. But
and actually, it's very interesting because before we decided to meet and have this conversation, but between the date where we decided to have our conversation and today, another conversation popped up with the guys, and they brought up the warrior culture, especially in their society. So that's gonna be a very interesting topic, and it came naturally. It wasn't forced. So beautiful to talk about it today.
We'll get into that, but I just I want you to tell me and the viewers and listeners a little bit more about your journey because. So you got into Hema, and when was this? When was the first time when you went to train with the HMB guys?
Never trained with them.
No, but
went for 2015.
2015. So it's like 7 years.
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
You got into competitions. So was this fairly early on, or?
I gotta be honest, that period of my life was kind of like very intense because imagine you change completely lifestyle. Hema was a part of it, but I don't remember all the dates because I wasn't focusing on it. I believe that the first competition, which was already successful, was within the first year. So probably I started around September. I'm not sure 100%, could be October or whatever. And by July, I did my first competition, so it was like it was intense, it was fast.
Yeah. How did that go?
So
the first competition. What was your experience of that?
Okay, at the time I thought it was super awesome. Then 7 years later, you look at the videos and you wish they were never published because it's cringe. I really thought like I'm so good, whatever, and then you go see it's a lot of. I was lucky because I was objectively fast and I had a good reading of the situation, but very poor technique. But of course, 7 months, you don't even have the time to develop the muscle memory or even understand. But it went well. So I think that in my specific case, speed of decision and understanding played a good part. It was a small event. I think it was overall like 4 clubs, probably. Not eye level. It was probably all clubs that were 5 or 6 years old, more or less. So and especially in North America, they don't have the same culture as European fencing. It's like kind of like basketball. If you see European basketball and American one, it's 2 different sports. So I'm not gonna like brag, yeah, I'm super good. In Europe, I don't think I would have done pretty well because the level is different. So in that specific scenario, I've reached a silver just behind a friend of mine from the previous club I was part of, and I was super happy. I really was super happy. Some people would say, "Well, you didn't win." I don't care. I'm there, man. It's awesome. I wanted to prove that I could apply what I've studied, and I believe I did.
And I mean, 7 months, that's not a long time at all. That's being in a beginner's tournament. And I mean, we have those as well. We just don't publish them as much. Usually they're club tournaments, I think, for most clubs. Yeah.
I think a lot of it could have had with the stage fighting part of my approach to Hema, because I was like a teenager, so I was really always fantasizing. For me, it was not just doing like a choreography. I was imagining, right, this is a real fight. It's childish, but I did. So basically, it was like shadow boxing for all those years, to the point where when I moved to full contact, I was just trying to apply what I've always visioned, anyways. So probably that's why I moved faster than the others, because the whole mental exercise was mostly already approached. I wouldn't say done, but approached.
Oh, sorry, I just dropped a few things here on the floor.
That's the cool things of going live.
Yeah. So maybe that's sort of a. I mean, it's you say that with smooth as fast, and if you get the movements in. Like you have a fluency with moving with the sword. That's one of the first things when I teach beginners, is just trying to make them move naturally with the sword. Usually we know how to walk, but do you know how to walk and cut? That's difficult. Do you know how to do this? How do you build up to that sort of fluency of motion? And once you have that, if you're fluent, you can do anything with your with the sword. It sort of becomes second nature. It's like learning how to drive a car. The first thing, if you don't know how to change gears, then you're not going to be focusing on the traffic. You need to learn the basic first, to just brake and use the clutch and the turn signals and the steering wheel, and if you've got that all sort of automatic, then you can start learning how to drive. You don't. Well, I guess you sort of jumped straight into Formula One by competing, the first thing you did, but generally speaking,
I wouldn't call it Formula One.
Still competition, but
go-karting.
Yeah, go-karting. Okay, fair enough. But it's a bit. It's funny because in Hema feel like they have to work themselves up to start competing. But for example, if you look at sport fencing, they have like a sparring, which is using the competitive rule set, basically 4 to 5 points or whatever, from day one. You go there and you get to sparring in a competitive format straight away, and I think that's very beneficial for them. So I'd say that's a pretty good approach to get to competing quickly in your career.
Yeah. Even because, I don't know if you agree with me, a very big part of at least a recreation of what fencing should be is the mindset. Because thank God, today we're not getting hurt. We've got all modern gear that we're not doing with sharps. But if you were really in that situation and you're dealing with somebody that wants to arm you and it's got a sharp, if you don't have the correct mindset, if you don't get used to the pressure, you're not going to perform. You could be the best executioner of solo drills, perfect form, then you can't apply it. So in order to be effective, you gotta get over that anxiety of competition. The sooner you do it, the better it gets.
Yeah, I think so too. That's an important point. And so you started competing fairly early in your career, so to speak, and you've done really well. Can you tell me a bit about that? What do you think it's the mindset that has taken you this far?
I don't know if I should take certain topics because we might start flirting with eugenics or whatever. I think it's also a genetical component. You know, everybody's got like the flight or fight instinct.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you can work on it and you can improve it with exercise and commitment. That is true, but it's also undeniable that certain people have it in them. And I just have it. Me, I don't know, when I pick up a weapon, the great equalizer, love them, because I'm a relatively short guy, so probably in other full contact sports I wouldn't do that well. You put a sword in my hand, I click. I don't know, something clicks, I just want to do it. So I guess that's one of the biggest thing. It's really the mindset. I want this. It's not that I'm afraid or I'm nervous or I'm particularly more skilled than others, because I do recognize I also won against more skillful fencers. It's just probably I see it. I don't know. I don't have an explanation, Anders. I don't. I just do it.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty good explanation in one way. Because I'm prone to overthinking stuff, but and that's a huge problem sometimes. Because one of the things which when I see people who are fencing, and regardless of how good they are, they get stuck in a mindset while up on the mat. Fencing.
Yeah.
So if they're losing and things aren't going really according to their game plan, out of nervousness or whatever it is, they get stuck in one direction and they have a hard time breaking out of it. But if you're more relaxed, if you've got more of problem-solving mindset then it's easier to find new paths. You're sort of goal-oriented in that regard. So
I don't even think it's conscious.
yeah.
So if you say goal-oriented, it's like it's a conscious decision. Oh, I don't know if it's a conscious decision. I just do it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's good. So do you have any fencing matches that you remember that you enjoyed the most or particularly proud of?
Proud? I don't know me. I think after you reach a certain level, because the way I see it, whenever you go to events, there's the real beginners, which you can totally tell, there's embarrassment, there's goofiness. So that's one level. Then there's the proper level, when they start having some confidence. And then there's the top level. You show up at an event, you see the first fencing matches, who's going to get to the finals. And usually it's always the same guys in the circuit. So I don't have one match in particular that I'm proud of. Because at the end, when you get to the finals, it's always the same guys, and there's not one guy in particular that I'm more proud of dealing with. Because for me, they're all at the same level. They're very high level, and I don't see as one better than the other. Then I have a weird theory, which I call the Pokemon theory. I don't know if you're comfortable with the children's game. When you start the Nintendo game, yeah. But basically, when you started the game, you have like 3 monsters that you can choose. One is water, one is fire, and the other one is plant. So the water wins the fire wins the plant, and the plant wins the water. So I really felt, from my experience, from what I've seen, that a fencer that is really, really, really good and usually has the better with a certain opponent doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to deal well with somebody else. Yeah. It's like certain styles or attitudes deal better with certain other subjects, and it's not always like an hierarchy. It's not that if you beat this guy that beat this other guy, it means you automatically beat that guy that was beaten by the other guy. Now it's getting a little bit confusing.
No, I understand completely. Something we've discussed a lot as well, me and Axel, primarily about this, how that actually works, that it's sometimes you beat someone and that person has beaten another person, but you won't beat that person. So it's a strange thing. It's like I don't know what it is. Psychology as well, I think, to some degree.
I think that now one thing came to mind, and this is gonna be bizarre. The fight that I'm most proud of, it's a fight I actually lost. And basically it was with a fencer that probably in the Hema ratings were were there. Like there's probably 2 or 3 positions of difference. So we're basically at the same level. That always beated me in the previous official events. I think like he beat me twice. And we met, I believe it was in 2019 at the final for the Montreal event. And it's the classic rule set where, either it's time limit or the first fencer that reaches 10 points, ends the match. That match ended by, time limit, and we stopped 6-5. And I really felt bitter because it was just 3 minutes. But the fact that it ended that way, I would really see it as a stall. It was like, it was no victory or no loss. Those were 2 fencers that were going at it. They were more or less at the same level, and they stopped it before we can see how it ended.
Yeah, okay.
And, either you win or you lose. You can totally tell if you win the respect of somebody just by the way you fence or the way they behave. The more cautious they become as you progress, the more respect they have towards you. Because they're starting to recognize your ability to be dangerous. And for me, that's the whole point. It's not about winning a medal. You can be lucky. You can just be lucky. You win a gold medal because whatever, the stars aligned. Doesn't mean you're a good fencer. But if you're constantly, up there, you constantly perform well. When you move, the confidence is obvious. The style is obvious. The art is there. You gain respect. That, I believe, is the fight that gained me the most respect out of everyone else, at least from the people I care about. Because if some other people don't like me, you're not worthy. In any case.
So who was it against?
It's a very shy person, so I don't think I should name the guy, but I can name the school. It's a school from from Quebec City. The school is called Scrimisi. They don't actually do historical fencing. They do fencing with historical sword based on their perception of what should work. And they're very open about it. So I wouldn't even call them scammers. They know it's not historical fencing. They do their own thing. And once again, he already asked me once not to mention him or whatever. So I'm not going to do that. But the guy knows who he is, and everybody knows who he is, because he's the winner for the club. So.
I'll put his name in the description if I can make you say it to me in private. No, just kidding.
Why do you have to make me fight with him?
Okay, so do you have a dream match? Someone you'd like to fence? Is there a top fencer you'd like to? Maybe we can set it up. You heard it here first. Now we can set you up.
Okay. But before I can even talk about that, I gotta get back in shape because 2 years of COVID didn't do me good. So I don't know. I really don't know because as I was saying before, everybody has such different styles that choosing one is hard. I don't have one that is better than the other. I can give you a list of fencers that I really like.
Well, if you write a list, there's going to be a name at the top of that list by its very
one
nature.
that I can bring immediately is Italian, is Moreno De Ricci from, I believe it's Guardia di Croce. The guy's beautiful. But wait, his style of fighting is beautiful. There's so much elegance in it. And I don't see that much Marozzo in tournaments in any case, because I believe that at least in longsword, it's more the German side that is prevalent, right? So seeing somebody, and I had the pleasure to spar with him, friendly sparring, back in 2017, that would be very fun.
Yeah.
That would be,
Yeah, I really admire his fencing. I think it's very aesthetic as well. I mean, efficient and aesthetic. Yeah, so a great guy as well. Yeah, that's a good choice. I've told you this before, but I'm fighting a duel with Federico Dall'Olio in March.
So it's for real. I thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
Over an ananas pizza.
Over a pineapple on pizza. That's the. But regardless, it doesn't matter because I'll win either way because I've been posting about pineapple on pizza just to tease him. Well, not just him, all you Italians, and my goal has always been to have a duel. And Federico said that we should fight about it. And if I win, I'll force him to eat an africana. An africana is a Swedish pizza with, it's got pineapple, bananas, peanuts, and curry on top of it.
I saw
and
that
ham.
blasphemy.
Yeah, it's
I saw that blasphemy. You're a very evil man.
yeah. But if he wins, I'll get served a proper margarita from Naples, I guess. So, so either way, I win, I think.
Yeah, you win.
But he's probably going to have to admit as well that it's now going to be a guilty pleasure to eat an africana. Yeah, so that's coming up in March, I think, will be when we do that. So it's going to be great.
Already chose the weapons?
I'm not sure what we said, but it's going to be longsword, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Possibly it could be with one of those pizza spatulas things. What do you call them?
That sounds so much like Conese style. I don't know if you know him.
Oh, Stefano.
Stefano. Oh my god, he's a subject.
Yeah, he's a subject.
Very fun guy.
Yeah, it's a funny guy. They've got the Hema in Pajamas Facebook group, very popular.
I think
Mostly ridiculous for American. for
I'm not sure, but I think he left.
What? Hema in Pajamas?
I believe so. No, I'm not sure.
No,
I don't have Facebook now.
I don't think so. I could check
Okay.
right now on my phone. I'd be very surprised if he left Hema in Pajamas. It's him and Diana and what's his name? Now his name is sorry for forgetting it,
Okay.
but
No worries.
they're running it. I think. Okay, so anyway, yeah. So you've been competing quite a lot before COVID, at least, and then and you also when did you start your club?
Oh boy, it was in the middle of the pandemic. I think it was in 2020, and let's just say that it wasn't the best time to begin, but I was in such a mental state that once again the fight or flight, the instinct kicked in. I said we either do it even in the worst conditions, or I'm never gonna do it because I'm always gonna find excuses not to. And first I moved from Montreal because that's where I came initially, and opening another club in Montreal would have not made sense because there's already an historically established big club over there. If you offer something else over there with less means because you're starting or whatever, it was not going to be successful. So I moved to the South Shore behind the St. Lawrence, and I tried in another big city called the Longueuil. Nobody interested. So I moved closer to my home in another village called Châteauguay. Once again, not many people. Until one guy, which the name is very difficult to pronounce, Yoganoro Mecomber, contacted me on Facebook saying, I want to try. And he was, very, very harsh, very rude, like, those 1980s badass men. So, and another guy called the Yornadate said, I want to try it too. So we meet, and they're both native. So it really happened by mistake. And after that, a third man came up, also a native. And we started just in 4. And after a bit, they asked, look, why don't we just move to the reserve, which is called Ganawake? I mean, yeah, sure. And that's when the club actually started. So it was one person, then the second, then the third, and so on and so forth. We did not have a boom.
Which tribe is it?
Mohawks.
Right.
And especially in in the native let's say culture, they're not very. I have to be careful. They're well known for being belligerent and warlike.
Okay. So it just turned out that you started to teach historical European martial arts in a Mohawk reservation.
Yeah, it was all randomness. It was never intended to be me. I just wanted to open a club, and whoever wants to come is welcome. I don't care about Skin color, religion, beliefs. You like to fence, yeah, let's do it. And things just worked out that way.
Yeah.
I'm actually happy, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I'll be straightforward. People don't like me already, so I don't care. I really don't like Canadian culture specifically because it's a lot of politeness and it's all empty. These guys are so similar to myself, straight to the point, no sugarcoating, just say what you have to say. We got along so well. We get along so well. Everything is so honest that if I had to choose, like really pick and choose, I would go with these guys all the way.
I mean, it was not by choice for you, I guess, to start training there. Well, because they sort of chose you. Have you spoken to them why they got interested in Hema? Was it just because they happened to see this, or was it, was it appealing to them in some way, or how did? Yeah.
First thing, swords are cool.
Yeah.
So they actually said it. They've been attracted to swords all their life, and especially as I was telling you before, there's this member that I'm trying to associate with. So he's gonna become an associate with me, Yoganoro, that feels that the community is becoming too weak, too passive, and he wants to restore the warrior spirit because they're very proud of their ancestry of what they call the fire, Turtle Island and everything. He wants to restore this pride, this warrior instinct, this instinct that, even if you just started in sport, then it's going to spread on all aspects of your life, including your workplace and even politics, the way you manage everything. And he thinks that this kind of activity, the bladed combat, is the best tool he has at his disposal to actually do this. So yeah, I totally agree with him. We desperately need, even as whiteys, to reestablish a culture that is based on certain basic moral codes and standards of what a proper adult man should be, that we're losing. I think this is a great tool to actually achieve that, because it's not just about sword fighting. If we wanted to fight, there's so many things we can go for, right? Why do we choose the sword? There's so much symbolism behind it. It's not even because it's a weapon for war. You know it way better than me. If you want to go to war, even back in the days, you're not going to go with a sword. But yet, we love swords. It's a symbol. It's related to probably even a social status. But that social status, even back in the days, was associated with nobility of spirit. So I really think that being a symbol, it's a symbol that we should reappropriate and reuse as the basic of our moral codes nowadays.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, a lot of the modern sort of explanations for why there's a warrior code, and it's a very natural sort of rational, way of viewing it, is that you come up with a warrior code in order to sort of limit the boundaries for violence in the society. So you've got a warrior class, and how do you make sure that they just don't go wild all the time? And then that's how you sort of end up with a warrior culture. But I think the opposite is also true. And this is what I think he's looking for, to some degree, that when you're training violence, it's inherently moral. There's something that you learn from it, which is absolutely necessary in order to develop certain aspects of your personality. So that leads to certain conclusions in a society, because or in a person, or in a moral code, or in a warrior culture, because they look very similar in many regards. And a lot of warriors talk about the same experience of what it means to be a warrior, regardless if it's 15th century Italy or Germany, or I'm imagining in the Mohawk tribes during their prime, so to speak.
Yeah.
2 seconds. I just need to tell my daughter to... Okej. Bra. Ta den. Men det finns ju en till laddare i hjärtat. stängdörren. Tack. So my daughter wanted her a mobile charger. So nothing.
I can't wait to become a father as well.
Are you on the way? Something you need to reveal?
Hopefully. But just looking at the videos when you were playing with your kids with the Nerf gun and whatever,
Yeah.
I want that. I want that for myself.
Yeah, it's good. Those the good times. Yeah, you never post the videos when it's nagging you and I told some neighbors here they just got a kid and they're very the first time is very special when you become a parent and and I said to him, I said, well, the first thing that you want to hear then, like you're longing for that first time you hear daddy, hear daddy. But then a few years later, daddy is always daddy is always followed with I want. Daddy, I want this, or daddy, can I have? So it's a change in the meaning of the word daddy, I guess.
But I'm pretty sure that even the fact that you can provide what they want gives you a sense of happiness in any case, I guess.
It's purpose. I mean, it's purpose in life. You change your perspectives by becoming a parent because you're ultimately responsible for someone else. It's just simple as that. And to tie back to the warrior culture discussion, maybe it's sort of the same thing. Like if you've proven yourself to be handling violence and all of that, that comes with responsibility and the position that you hold in a society based on that. When a warrior is who defends you, and that carries with it responsibilities, but also a sense of purpose and meaning. Which is bigger than yourself. This is why people are ready to die for other people. It's altruistic.
And absolutely agree with you. Like many people have as the main goal in their life to be happy, and the reality is happiness is always ephemeral. It can vanish in one instant, but the sense of purpose to go through life by serving others, that's never ending. And when you're gonna be on your deathbed, you will know you've had a meaningful life. You've had an impact, rather than always just being happy and having done anything for anybody. When you're gone, you were happy, you left nothing behind. I think that's an empty life, but that might be me. I might be a bigot, whatever it is.
No, but there's actually a passage in Havamal, the Norse text, Havamal. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
I am not.
No, but there's a paragraph in there which says, some people are, but this is wildly paraphrasing. But it basically says that some people fear the fight, but then they, although the spears spare their lives, they're still going to die. They're going to lie on their deathbed at some point anyway. So I think that's sort of that's clearly a warrior culture. Reading Havamal is a lot about how to behave and what to do, and it also gets a little bit mystic at the end there with Odin hanging himself for wisdom, etc., and all of that. So very, very fascinating text, to be honest. So I wanted to go back to this. Have you had a lot of with the Mohawks? Have you had a lot of conversations about the? Or do they have a tradition of their own? Have they sort of fought with bladed weapons continuously? Is there a living lineage?
Well, yes, there is, but it's not very practiced. Now, I will not butcher words, so I'm not gonna try to name it. They have particular styles of fighting that comes from their ancestors, and it's based with the, if I remember correctly, it's called it's like a big stick that looks like the back of a rifle, and now I don't remember exactly how it's called. And then there's the classic tomahawk and knife.
I think
so.
I've seen that one. It's used in that movie from the 90s. It must be Last of the Mohicans.
Last of Mohicans.
Yeah,
yes.
With that, I remember that scene when she throws herself over the cliff, there's a fight with one of those weapons.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, if you remember, the oldest native, Chingachgook, had that very, very, very long weapon.
Yeah.
And I just don't remember how it's called, but that's one of the weapons they use. Usually the ones I've seen that they've showed me, they're way smaller though. So, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
And now I feel very embarrassed because I don't remember the name.
Yeah, I'll put it here. So they'll
it's
put the
gonna kill
name
me.
as they should.
Oh my god.
Okay, so
In my defense, I'm very, very tired. I think it even shows. So
it's early morning for you as well, because there's quite a bit of a time difference between us.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have that, and has it been written down, or is it just practiced?
No writing. It's just passed down,
Yeah.
like their language, by the way. So.
Oh, they don't have a written language?
They do, but what I need to take a second to think, because again, it's my second language. The tradition was not of the fighting system was not written down that I'm aware of, and the writing is so scarce that they do offer courses for people that want to learn, but most of them just learn how to speak. It's kind of like the Italians abroad. They kind of learn from their parents how something sounds like, and they repeat, but they weren't educated in it formally. So you might get these, Italian Americans that speak with this weird accent and weird distortion of what Italian is. But if you ask them to write, they wouldn't be able to, because they've never did it. So if I understood correctly, there are people that actually study language. And there was a girl that attended a couple of classes. I think it was Paxton. I don't remember the last name. That went into full retirement. I don't remember how long it lasted, in which she was only able to speak the native language. And she's highly regarded. So whenever somebody needs to remember how a name is spelled or how you say something, they ask her. So that makes me gives me reasons to believe that not many people are comfortable with it, because in any case it's getting lost, like everything else in any case.
So how did but it's funny though, because cultures and traditions can survive for a very long time. I think more if they're sort of isolated. I'm not like there's actually a village in Ukraine where everyone speaks Swedish. It's called Gammelsvenskby. It's a Swedish village. People left behind like from the 17th century, something like that. They stayed there, and they were Swedes, and they speak Swedish, but it sounds old, like old Swedish. But they've
one single city,
one town. It's a small town.
How did the language survive?
They just kept their identity of being Swedish. So I guess.
That's commitment.
Yeah, it's commitment. I think the king visited a few years back. Now they were actually occupied by Russian forces up until quite recently in the war. The Russians just left, so and I think they've suffered some artillery since then. So I'm not really sure what the status is now, but let's hope they survive another 400 years at least. Preserving
Hopefully.
that. Yeah. So okay, so they were looking for something to complement their this. What was it that they saw which made them not just go for their own? Weaponized art.
Most probably is because there's no written, written record, and not instructors.
Yeah.
So you can play with weapons, and I know they purchase them and they play with them, but you can totally tell when you're trying to figure something out without any source, or when you have an instructor that tells you exactly what to do because it's been tested, it's been proven. We have records that tell us that it works. So even if you go in with it with a little bit of skepticism, you go with the mindset of we're assuming it works. If you have nothing at all besides objects that are left behind and word of mouth, you don't know where to start with. And again, this is speculation because I did not have this specific conversation. When they said, I want to learn longsword, they said, all right.
Yeah, of course. As you would. You're proselyting. Trying to get it word across the gospel of Lichtenauer. Or what tradition are you studying, actually?
Okay, we started with Mayer, and this is just my personal opinion. I believe that starting with a system that is specular, which means whatever you can do on the left, you can do on the right, it's easier to start with. So we've done 1 year of Joachim Mayer. So, they learned the basics. So we started getting comfortable with the whole Fluency system, with really the basic stuff. We didn't go too much on the tricky aspects of backhanded strikes and whatever. Then I've introduced a little bit of Fiore de Liberi, only to move to Filippo di Vadi, because that's really one of the styles that I find fascinating. It's a mix between Fiore and Marozzo, kind of, if you see it aesthetically. I wouldn't go with Marozzo because it's one of those styles that is so complicated that unless I'm trained by an expert for 5 years, I'm not even mentioning it. So at least I go that. Vadi, I believe, is simple enough as Fiore, but you're starting to see stances getting a little narrower. Sorry, I apologize. Movements that are way more fast, which obviously is starting to match the unarmed fencing approach that we have, and not the warlike one where you have to put weight under every single style. So I was attracted to it. And my main goal eventually is going to be to mix the two, the German and the Italian, into something that fits, the fencer's personal approach. Like, you learn this, you learn that. What do you feel like it's yours? And I don't believe it's historically inaccurate, because we do have records of nobility, youth, traveling across Europe back in the days from court to even practice the fencing. So I don't think it's weird at all believing that, a young noble visited Europe, saw this, saw that, and when he goes back home, he takes whatever he learned, and that's what he's going to apply in his fencing approach.
No, I mean, to some extent, what changes a style, I mean, you call the same things different names. So you may perform them slightly differently, but I mean, it's a bit funny. There was someone posted a clip actually of Wing Chun and some other sort of traditional martial art. Two guys started off as a conversation, and then it became a fight. And they were talking about styles of kicking and how you should do that and all of that, and then it turned into a fight. And it was basically just two monkeys fighting, It looked the same as any brawl with fairly unskilled fighters, I'd say. So once you're out of the classroom and you're entering into real violence, a lot of things start to look similar, because there are limits to what you can pull off in a fight.
Think about it. You have 2 arms, 2 legs, and a sharp extension of yourself. It's not that you can go so far different from one place to the other. At the end, you're always going to be limited to the same concepts.
Yeah, and of course there are trainings which are like training methods and techniques which are more valid than others. That's naturally the case. I think that the test of it is can you pull it off against a non-cooperative opponent, and is it?
That's why we have tournaments.
Exactly, and is it effective when in real life? So yeah, maybe you can tap according to some rule set, or you can kill someone a millisecond before the other guy you get run through. But so that's maybe not the most fundamentally martial approach to things. So, but if you sort of
Yeah.
clean that up and say, okay, so this is the context we're fighting for, and you know that, then I don't think it's a problem to mix sources. And my personal approach to how to teach fencing is I don't even consider the sources to begin with. I don't want my students to even think about the sources. Basically, their terminology at that point. I want them to learn how to move with the sword. And the funny thing is this: I'm actually holding a class in March at the same event where Federico is, where it's going from noob to fighting, sparring in 15 minutes. How can you take a new student and just narrow things down, create a game from it, so that they can actually spar directly and learn something, and a lot of things just falls into place then. Things like footwork. You don't start with drilling footwork and then you apply it. You start with a game where footwork sort of comes naturally, and when they've sort of understood the game, they can move their feet. It's just the nature of it. So I think that's a very sort of a more intuitive approach to learning how to fence.
And I believe it's very difficult to actually try to create, as you put it, games that will eventually lead you to have the proper footwork without saying specifically, do this footwork. I think there needs to be so much comprehension of the basic mechanics of what brings you to do the footwork to bring subconsciously people to actually do it. And I gotta admit, I'm having a hard time up until now.
With footwork specifically?
No, with doing this kind of game thing. Like you want to reach a specific goal. Like, I don't know, I want you to work on the reaction time. And then I'm just making things up. So you're making certain exercises that are supposed to build up for that goal. And when you're creating them in your mind, everything makes sense. And then you bring it to the students, but their reaction is different. The outcome is not what you expected in your mind. So you have to go back and try to understand how that concept is going to play out with students without, doing the drill specifically. It's tough.
And
It's
I
tough.
think the approach there is partially to make things as absolutely simple as they can be. A lot of the time, like you have a problem when you're a bit of an advanced fencer and you're trying to figure out a new drill, and you're making assumptions that, okay, so this is just natural for them to shift their feet a little bit. But it's not natural. They're not going to do it unless they're quite skilled already. So you need to break things down to be very, very simple, and that's the game. And once they've understood the game, then you make small changes and say, if you do this, you get that advantage. If you do that, you get that advantage. So every exercise that I try to make is I break them down from the simple, and then I add things until they become quite complex. So it's basically easy, and then a little bit harder, and then you go into sparring, and then you can maybe apply the most simple of those principles. It takes a long time. So have you received any feedback on how this has sort of impacted them? Are they enjoying it? Are they getting what they want from it? What are their feelings about the similarities between historical warrior cultures maybe and their own? That was a lot of questions in one. I realized.
I'm trying to give one answer that, as you said, is going to be simple to understand, but it's not simple because they're not simple people. It's a complex culture. So they just want to do longsword for the moment. Me, I wanted to introduce even another weapon system, but they said, no, we want to learn longsword and we want to do it well, which already is giving you, a feeling that they are not there to have fun. They want to learn to be effective. They do not want to get distracted. And me, I already started thinking they're going to get into fatigue soon. But when I mean fatigue, I mean like mental fatigue. You get bored. Then I, based on this fear of getting bored, after they got a little bit comfortable with the basics, let's start adding more complex concepts. Like from the classic Hoberhaus, Unterhaus, Mittelhaus, let's start, playing with the Sturzhaus, Glutshaus, let's start doing the weird German stuff, right? And they actually said, you know what? No, because I feel I am not completely comfortable with the basics. I would want to continue only doing the basics until I get them right. And from my personal experience, that is so weird. Because from what I've seen with different other clubs, you want to do as much as possible because it gives you the illusion that you know more. So when you go to other clubs or whatever, you run your mouth and say, yeah, I know things. Instead, they're different. And I don't know, they are open and saying we're not going to get bored. My subconscious is telling me that they will. And I don't know. I gotta trust them at this point. I gotta accept the fact that I have a mentality and I come from a certain culture. They're different. And I don't necessarily have to understand. But if, they're very direct people and they're telling me this is the way it is, I just need to believe. So for now, the way they're doing it is they just want to continue doing the basics and work on the details of the basics. The moment they will feel like, I know that with this simple cut, I can manage any situation that comes, let's see the variations. So for now, we're doing Vadi, Filippo Vadi. So as you said, it doesn't really matter what kind of school you're studying, because at the end of the day, it's the same thing. And they like it, even if I feel they might get bored. They really like it. The way they see it is it's swords, so that's why it's cool. Many of them do other martial arts. We've got wrestlers, we've got instructors in other weaponries, like knife fighting or Salat, which is kind of like Krav Maga, Filipino martial arts. Many of them are instructors in other martial arts. But they like swords, and I really believe because swords is the thing that most likely can simulate what a real fight to the death is. And now I don't believe any of us glorifies violence or anything. But I truly believe there is something really visceral about the simulation of a fight to the death. I know this sounds childish because most styles are just, like sporting duels. Yes, but even if you're doing the sporting duel kind of fencing, you still are holding a feather in your hand, and you know that feather represents a sharp weapon with a point, and if you get that point inside, the man dies or you die, and there's something that comes up, that
but I think any martial art that doesn't understand that the martial art is about exerting your will on the opponent, I think is probably delusional about what it is that they're doing. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When you get the other guy to tap out, that means that he just lost his life at the end of the day.
Yes.
He's submitting his life to you. He's surrendering. So it's the same thing.
You are right. So I really don't know why they like this particularly. Because, once again, they come from other martial arts. This could be just a topic that could take 5 hours to talk about in a sufficient way. Why swords are so awesome. I don't know. But...
but everyone understands what a sword is. It's a representation of something. It has a very similar position in a lot of cultures. That it's
Japanese culture.
Yeah, and I mean, in a lot of other cultures as well, the sword is a manifestation of a symbol of. They put it on flags in in Arab countries as well. That's it's a symbol of something. So yeah, that's.
What do you?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I apologize. Why do you believe the sword became so important as a symbol? Because there were so many other weapons that could have been chosen, right? Why the sword? In every movie, in pop culture, whenever there's going to be the bad guy that faces the good guy at the end of the movie, it is with a sword.
Yeah.
Why?
That's a very good question. I think. I mean, okay. So I'm going to give you a spontaneous answer. I haven't really thought why that is, why it's sort of taken on this role. I know the specific answers to it in many cases, but I think maybe it's like this: a sword. When the swords were developed, it's a difficult weapon to make. A spear is a lot easier. An axe is a lot easier. So it's going to be connected with someone who's dedicated to warring, to going to war, to be a part of the warrior class. And of course, that means that it carries with it a certain status. If you're a farmer, you're going to use any farming tool as your weapon. Or a spear or an axe or something like that. So the sword then just becomes a symbol of that warrior culture and ties with that thing. But as such, it also has an extended meaning, I think, because it becomes, in the Western culture at least, it represents justice too. And it represents the executioner as well, which isn't necessarily justice. It's got a lot of different connotations, which has something to do with power, I guess, to some degree. To a very large degree. So it becomes a very powerful symbol in that way. But I mean, the spear, if you look at Norse mythology, the spear is very important. It's a spear that penetrates Odin. In Christianity, I think as well, the spear is the soldier who stabs Jesus with a spear, but the sword is there as well. Of course, I come with a sword. I can't remember the exact biblical quote now. It's I don't know. That's a very indirect answer, I think, but I think that has something to do with it at least. That's why.
And even in iconography, religious iconography, for example, the devil is depicted with the trident, but every angel with flaming swords. Yeah. So it's like it is really associated with the concept of justice and good. The good guy must have the sword.
Yeah. I'm sitting within reach of 4 swords. I just picked up my method here, and it's just fun. I just picked it up because it's a very nice thing to hold. It's got a nice weight to it. It's, it feels really good. A sword is there's a beauty to it. There's an aesthetic to it, which there are nice axes as well. But a sword there's an aesthetic aspect to the sword, which I really appreciate. I think a lot of people do.
And we still can't give the answer of why we love it. I'm not gonna swear. Why we love it. We're going around. We still cannot give an answer.
Not a straight
I guess we're gonna have to live with the mystery.
Yes, it's the mystery. It's the inner sword. There's maybe the inherent. We've inherited the sort of. It's ingrained in our genes. There's so many generations of warriors who've used the sword that we're now connected to them on a deeper genetic level or spiritual level. I don't know.
Not true, because even Native Americans love it.
Well, they have some sort of sword as well, I guess. Yeah, maybe it's a spiritual thing then.
Yeah, not that I'm aware. Not swords the way we have them.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware. I mean, there's the Aztec, I believe it was I'm not going to pronounce the name, but there was that kind of a sword made with obsidian pieces all over, so it would be kind of like extremely sharp. Yeah. Can we call that a sword? Technically?
Yeah. I mean, it's called something, I can't remember its name now. It's like a lot of C's and X's and T's and, sorry. For the Aztec population out there. But
we're sorry. We're trying our best.
We're doing our best. Yeah, no, I know which one you mean. Yeah, it's not sort of. It's sort of similar to a sword, but it's maybe not a sword. I don't know.
We're not as knowledgeable as we think we are.
No, we should stick to historical
What we
fencing.
know.
Yeah, we should stick to what we know. Yeah. So regarding the warrior culture, then.
Yeah.
Have you had these conversations about? I mean, you mentioned previously that they sort of came because they wanted to live this experience and train this because they felt like they were sort of walking away from that path, and they wanted to resurrect that. Did I get that right? Has
Yes,
it been
and
a path like that for them?
I cannot speak for all of them. For one in particular, which is my best friend, yes. And now everybody lives, if we want to call it this, like warrior journey, very, very personally. So I'm not gonna start talking about what is real deep motivations are. So I cannot really give the explanation for that. The only thing he told me is that this, according to what he believes in, is necessary to be spread, especially to the youth, to refine pride in what their warrior culture was. Now, what that means exactly, I cannot say. I can give my interpretation. Like if he would say that to me, I would interpret it as you guys are getting too comfortable in all the commodities nowadays. Everything needs to be new. Everything needs to be comfortable. Nothing requires sacrifice. Everything can always be dealt with dialogue, which is a lie. Sometimes dialogue is not done. And especially for these people with dialogue, they've been screwed. I'm not going to go in details, but Canadians are full of shit. The Canadian government is one of the worst corrupt pieces of shit I've ever seen. And they do that with a smile on their face. Yeah. And every time, they had to make deals with the native populations, in which, you're going to get a good deal, they did not give a good deal. And probably going back to this primal attachment to a warlike culture that is proud and knows that cannot bow every single time, will even bring, proud people to say, no, we will not comply with this because we know we can get more, and if you continue, we'll fight back. And now I'm not saying fight with weapons or physically. It's just that we're not just going to get our bribe, be quiet, and keep losing land. Because even if it's not mainstream, the Canadian government always tries at every point with any excuse to keep stealing land. Like, you've got this little piece of land that already you've got screwed over because they're not native from the reservation in Ganawake. They came from like the New York state. And when they were given this land, that is basically a swamp that has been bona fide. That's not like the best thing you could have done. Now, every time, they want to build like electric centrals or whatever, they're trying to do it on their land. It's just a small piece of land. Yeah, but you're taking it away from us. So, having that confidence, that connection to a warrior spirit, like, you're still invading. And we need to protect our land. And we need to have strong men and women that will see what the threat is and will have built the confidence to see the threat as a threat and have, enough courage and warrior spirit to contrast it, because that's modern warfare, let's call it like that, right? Even having the integrity of not being corrupted. That's what I need. And I really believe probably that this kind of activity has something regarding also the chivalry code, in which honor is more important than personal gain. Now, I don't even want to go into the historical fact that the knights weren't always noble. That's besides the point. The romanticized version is that, and that's what we should be inspired by. that might do good to population that could be either, the native ones, but especially even us, the Canadian ones. And I think that's the fascination with it, is going back to a time, even if it's a little bit romanticized, in which there's more important things and values than just getting what's convenient for you personally, doing something that is better for the community as a whole. And you can only do that if you have strong beliefs, a strong willpower, confidence, and something to believe in. And I really believe, that this kind of approach, the historical fencing, that is the closest thing we have to knightly hearts, offers.
No, I agree. I mean, martial arts, and I think this is the fencing and historical fencing has the potential to be to really be a true manifestation of that ideal. And in the best club cultures, it promotes just that. It promotes those values and those virtues in people, and because it's a prerequisite for you in order to fight, you need to know how to fight, and martial art teaches you how to fight in a very physical way. But I think that rubs off. It's sort of, if you're steeped in that culture, it overflows and it affects everything around you and how you view things, and the responsibility you take upon yourself, the honesty that, you don't lie about things, you tell the truth, you speak it directly and honestly. Everything sort of falls into place once you start to do that and view martial arts from that perspective. I think it becomes much more true. And in historical fencing, we've seen a lot of people going off in very strange directions, and we're all experimenting to some degree. But absolutely, that for a lot of clubs and a lot of fencers out there, it seems to be that fencing is about whatever cause it is that you have in the modern world today, and they're missing the grand lesson, which lies much closer to your individual progression, your individual development of your individual virtues and values. So that's very interesting. I love to hear this, that there's this connection being made between our history and these historical martial arts with a Mohawk tribe. It makes sense to them. It means something to them. I mean, it just makes my heart,
Now, since in every culture, you're gonna have the guys that love to just start shit. I am not talking for everybody. I am not saying this is what these people want. I know 6-7 guys. I'm friends with them. This is what they shared with me. So I'm just putting it out there. Please don't come at me saying you're misrepresenting us. No. Please, for the love of God, that's the last thing I want right now.
You know what? Let them come and let them fight. If that's the case, isn't that something that
I'm so tired of?
Yeah,
I'm so tired of that. I'm so tired.
It's too early in the morning.
Actually, we just probably I hope finished a 3-year-old feud just last night. I'm not gonna go in details, but basically, I left my previous club because of politics ruin everything.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of friction, passive aggressiveness, and things under the table. Apparently, last night we met, the 2 clubs, 3 clubs in total, after a very, very long time for a friendly sparring session. Apparently, things went well. And I really hope that this is going to become the beginning of a friendly relationship between everybody, because it is so ridiculous to hate, hate maybe might be a big word, but, have hostilities towards other people that are respectful to you. They enjoy what you do, and we're very few practicing historical martial arts, right? So we should try to create a bigger community instead of just waging war against each other. So everything was extremely respectful. There's been, I perceived a willingness to just leave whatever happened in the past. And hopefully, one really unpleasant war just ended in a peace treaty. Finally. Because even most wars never end in the complete annihilation of a culture. Usually, we sign this treaty. I hope we finally sign this with this holy treaty and we can move on. Now, I don't want other wars. I'm so tired.
Yeah.
I'm so
No,
tired.
but I think it depends on what happened during the war. If there's too much bad blood and someone has behaved really poorly towards you, it's harder to just move forward and leave it behind. And some bridges are burned, that's just the way it is, and it's fine, that can be the case.
But this
as well.
is the thing.
But you don't want to go out and search out fights with people over ridiculous things. There are too many more important things in life, I think.
Yeah, I'll make an example. This is a word used too often for no reason. The Nazis. Well, when the Nazis overstepped, well, they had to be, processed and everything. But it's not that Germany had to be destroyed. So if somebody disrespected me or vice versa, perfect. Our bridge is burned, right? But our clubs have nothing to do with it. So those are good people, good students. Mine are too. Let them approach. Let them have their experience. Don't let your own personal issues get in the way of other people that have nothing to do with it having their fun. So if we can get to that point, I'd be more than happy. And that for me still means the war is over. Our bridges are burned. We're never going to be friends or polite to each other. But the war is over. And that's all I care about.
No, I mean, from my perspective, there are people who've behaved very poorly in the historical European community over the years. And
oh boy.
oh boy.
I know.
And I don't feel the need to forgive those people for the things that they've done. And I don't feel a need for them in general. They just, they did what they showed who they are. And I now walk my way with my people, and I'm perfectly happy with that. It takes quite a lot, I think, to get on my bad side, to get completely, discarded. But it's if you're there, it's going to be very hard. You have to prove that there's always a way back for people, but you'll have to prove that's the case. And you have to realize as well that a lot of times when people behave really badly, it's who they are. It's what they are. They would behave like that regardless. So, but that's on a personal level. It doesn't have to be between groups in that sense, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah.
And again, stopping a war doesn't mean you have to be friends.
No.
It means stop the hostility.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it means.
Yeah. Good point. So I think we're sort of talking in riddles for a lot of the viewers here now, getting quite internal. But it was we talked about family before. I need to go and pick up my son from school. It's Friday afternoon here, although it's early morning for you.
I need to take my little baby for a walk. So.
What's the little baby?
It's a mix between German Shepherd and Bernese Mountain Dog.
Okay. Yeah, so
got a Mohawk name.
Mohawk name. What's the name?
Oahu, which means wolf.
Oh,
means wolf.
Good name.
She's not a wolf.
Okay, still a good name. Yeah.
Thank you.
So if I ever get a dog, it might be called Fenris, but that's a sort of an ominous name as well for a dog. Giving that.
You really like Norse culture.
Well, it's sort of my culture, so I have to.
There you go.
But I feel very just through you as a medium. I feel more connected with the Mohawk Nation now as well. So at some point, I really hope that I get the chance to meet them, and if we host an event, you're all more than welcome to come and join us here as well.
Swordfish.
Yeah, see what happens to swordfish. I think there's work there to be done. But yeah. So very nice talking to you as always, Orlando. Thank you for coming.
From you as well.
Thank you for coming on the podcast, and have a really good day.
It was my pleasure, and have a great day with your family.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, Anders.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Did you like that video? I hope that you did, and if so, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. We also have a Patreon where you can support us and a Facebook page where you can take part in discussions. That's it for now. Take care and fence well.